I'm going to tell you what phrases you can say to a narcissist that can and will absolutely crush them, whether you mean to or not, and we're starting right now. Narcissists have always reminded me of cold-blooded animals. For one, that's a pretty good insult, but two, it's actually pretty true. Just like a cold-blooded animal can't regulate their own body heat. They need heat lamps and support for all of that. Narcissists cannot regulate their own self-esteem, happiness. There's a lot. Narcissists need other people to do this for them. Their heat lamp, essentially, is narcissistic supply, which means attention. That's what you rob them of when you say certain things to them. It also crushes their ego, which is a balloon, and you have a pin and you're ready to pop it. We're going to talk more about the ego later, and along with some other things. But for now, let's get started with number 1, the unimportance. If you tell a narcissist they're unimportant in any way, this crushes their ego and destroys them. They have a huge sense of self-importance, but this always needs to be boosted up by somebody else, and that would be you. So phrases like, I don't have time for you right now. I have something else going on right now. I'll get back to you. Things like that make them feel incredibly unwanted, unloved, and they're going to be in shock that you won't just jump right to their demands, whatever they may be. The narcissist needs you to make them feel important. When you don't do that, it pretty much is crushing and mind-blowing to them. They need the validation that you're going to jump to read and answer their texts. You're going to jump to answer the phone. Again, whatever else they want. If all of a sudden you let them know they have to wait in line like everybody else, and they're not in fact special or important, obviously they can't handle this. And this is very similar to what you learn when you begin to master the gray rock technique. The whole idea behind gray rock is to make yourself seem flat, dull, boring, and quite frankly, over the narcissist. You become a gray rock until the narcissist leaves you alone. Another video, though, for another day. But if you say things like, haven't read your texts, been super busy, oh geez, didn't realize you called 4 times, been working, don't apologize either if you choose to say things like that, because you're not sorry at all. What you are is actually busy. And things like this send a very loud, clear message. They're not your first priority, and that idea messes them up big time. Let's move on to number 2, the disbelief. There's nothing quite like calling a lying narcissist a liar and watching the meltdown and the lash out and watching them self-implode right in front of your face. Phrases along the lines of, the flat out, I don't believe you, the most basic one you can say, or now you know that's not true, or well, if you think that's true, I guess that's good for you. Or even the more antagonistic, okay, yeah, right, tell me another one, shows that you think they're not being honest. This is a surefire way to piss them off, which is also something else I'm going to address later on in the video because it's very, very important. But this is where most of the time, even when they're caught red-handed in a lie, the narcissist persists. In my situation, it was basically the same thing. We started with, well, you didn't actually see what you thought you saw in my phone. I assure you, survivor, I did. This is gaslighting, by the way. So if you want to look more into gaslighting, I have a video with resources, and it's going to be down in the video description for you. You'll find more there on gaslighting. But the story then quickly changed to, okay, maybe you saw it, because of course I did, but all I did was talk to these women. I wasn't sleeping with them. And you can now see here the annoying, frustrating go-around, even when completely caught. Narcissists do a lot of things, and one of them they do pretty damn well is deny. But when I pushed with my disbelief, things got worse. He began yelling, screaming, and he ended up telling me that super classic, fine, I did whatever you think I did, but I know the truth and I know I'm innocent. That's not verbatim. It was something along those lines, but he was clearly losing his mind. I remember watching him walk around the room. He was pacing. He was nervous. His arms were crossed and folded. He seemed very closed off and clammed up, and he was sputtering. And, he basically told me, believe what you want to believe, which also means he was over it and just wanted to sweep it under the rug and move on like they do oh so very often. If you would like to talk about a narcissistic relationship that you are a part of or were a part of, you can send an email to BookAChatWithJess@gmail.com to set up private one-on-one coaching sessions and chats with me. Let's move on to number 3, the negative. How about some hits to the narc's self-esteem, eh? I'm not actually implying you should say these things just to say these things, but telling a narcissist negative things about themselves blasts their ego into little teeny tiny pieces. Narcissists create very false ideas of themselves. They're big and bad and you can't faze them, and they're special and powerful, and well, as a matter of fact, you actually can faze them. When you stop boosting their self-esteem and their ego and you tear them down, again, whether you mean to or not, it crushes and destroys them. Phrases that hit particularly well, not that you need any more ammunition, you know what you're dealing with, but you're just a perpetual disappointment. I particularly like that one. Or you're disappointing in general. You're a loser. Things like that hurt really bad, along with, wow, you haven't accomplished much, have you? Don't have much to show, do you? Wow, you didn't get that promotion, huh? Something along those lines that will just tear them down. This goes beyond those appearance-based insults because these kinds of things hit at the core of who they really are. Not that a good, hey, ugly doesn't hurt people, but really think about, you got to get it underneath and at the core of who the narcissist really is. You have to shine a spotlight on something that really seriously bothers them. You tell someone they're ugly? Nah, okay. It sucks. It's mean. Call somebody a disappointment. That shit cuts deep. Telling them they're worthless. I'm sure you get it by now. But stuff like that is why it's so vital for us, especially, to learn how to be a warm-blooded animal and give ourselves what we need. We need to have healthy self-esteem. We have to know our value, what we offer, our qualities, what we bring to the table, etc. I really couldn't care less what anybody calls me. I know who I am. I know what I offer. I know what I bring to the table, and I'm not scared to sit down and eat alone, nor should you be. These are skills that narcissists really should master, but frankly, I'm here for survivors, not narcs. They're on their own. But let's move on to number 4, the incorrect. I really don't recommend that you honestly do any of this, but I really don't recommend you tell a narcissist they're wrong. But this goes hand in hand with the liar bit that I previously talked about. Calling a narcissist out on their bullshit, it obviously makes them spiral out of control. It angers them. They're going to scramble. They're going to get panicky. If you tell anyone they're wrong about something, most people jump into defense mode, and we do too from time to time. There's no reason to think the same won't happen here. Sometimes with the incorrect, along with a lot of other things on this list, you might get punishment for doing these things. It's normal for most narcissists, especially the covert narc that likes to punish with silent treatments and things like that. The prime way of punishing you to a narcissist is to cut communication. I do have videos on silent treatment, ghosting, and how you deal with all that. I will leave those also down in the video description for you if you want to check those out. But let's move on to number 5. The critique. I don't really want to spend too much time here. I just have to throw it in because I want to try to touch all the bases, but it's obvious. It ties in with calling them a liar and telling them everything is wrong. It's negative criticism. You don't want to criticize them. You just want to avoid it altogether. Unless you don't and you want to watch them lose their shit, then by all means. Phrases like, "Aw, you'll do better next time." Well, I would have, wouldn't have handled it that way. But, I guess you did what you thought was best, comparing them to other people, which is, again, their own trick. It's triangulation. It'll get them pretty upset. They're going to be distraught. It does destroy them. It makes them, it kind of pops their fantasy bubble that they live in where they feel that they're perfect and they always make the correct decision, so on and so forth. You definitely want to stay away from critiquing a narcissist about anything. Number 6, the discard. Ending the relationship is always going to make a narcissist panic. If you do it, or sometimes just even threaten it, it destroys the narcissist. Even if they were going to dump you in 10 minutes, but you got there first, you ending the relationship makes them go into a full-on meltdown. Narcissists will always want to be the ones who end the relationship. One, this helps them play the victim, helps their smear campaign run a little bit easier because you're the bad guy. They had to get away from you. You were terrible, this, that, and the other. Secondly, it gives the narcissist that overwhelming feeling that they quote unquote won the relationship. They have an overwhelming need. It's just a necessity to be right and win. Whatever the hell those things mean to them, I really don't know. I don't know how anybody wins a breakup and comes out on top because breakups suck, but they feel that they do if they're the one who leaves you. whatever helps them sleep at night. But lastly, they don't want things to end until they're ready. And by ready, that means they have somebody new. There's new supply. They've probably started a whole new relationship with somebody else before they actually discard you. So when you take all that away from them and you walk away, you go no contact, you break up with them, holy shit, Batman. They freak out. They're going to yell. They're going to tell you things like, well, I've been cheating on you anyway, or I didn't want you anyway, so good riddance, and all kinds of silliness to make it seem like they were over you in the first place, but you just beat them to the punch. Narcissists have to justify to themselves being dumped. It's kind of funny in like a super sad way a little bit, but this is where I want to touch on a couple things I've been mentioning throughout the video before we move on to the next point. I want to touch here on the narc injury. The term narc injury is just what we refer to as the ego bruise. I've said ego bruise and ego several times here. The narcissistic injury happens when you hurt their feelings. You make them feel bad. Again, intentional or not. I'm not saying to actually say all these things. This is just knowledge we need to learn. Honestly, we need to steer clear of these things, go no contact, and get away from these people. But a lot of the times you inflict a narc injury on them, you don't even realize what you've done. We don't mean to cause any distress, but they're very, very touchy. They're frail. They're fragile. They're incredibly offended by a lot. And there are quite a lot of things that make them upset. So usually when we do this, it's completely unintentional. Another thing I have to talk about here is narcissistic rage. And I have to be completely transparent about everything. The truth here is, if you do these things, which I'm not recommending you do, but I'm going to talk about them anyway, the narcissist will freak out. They're going to panic. They're going to melt down. However you want to say it. I've also said this a few times, throughout the video. They get pissed. Narcissistic rage is a real thing. Honestly, if you want to save yourself a lot of trouble, avoid what I'm talking about. Don't antagonize. Learn how to gray rock, go no contact, and leave these people in all of their own puddles, deep puddles of misery. You might get some kicks out of it and enjoy making them nuts for a hot minute and get some vengeance out of it. As a survivor, I get that. I wanted revenge, I wanted vengeance, I wanted him to suffer and all kinds of other things, but making them lose control and freak out like all these things will do, there's just no need to do it. I know a lot of us want to punish them, but trust me, they punish themselves. They really, truly do. Doing these things can cause panic and they can immediately lash out and they might get weird and they might do things like immediately discard you. Narcissists can very quickly discard and recoil when you become what I kind of call dangerous. You call them out. They can feel you have one foot out the door. You're letting them know that you don't trust them. And you're not letting, them run their games on you. So when they feel you doing some of these things, you might find yourself just immediately discarded, immediately broken up with. So again, something else to watch out for. This is all about pushing their buttons. What pisses them off, what bruises their ego, causes that narc injury, and all of that kind of stuff. And it might just be something you want to avoid. So again, you really just want to make a quick silent exit if you have the option to do so. But even if you get discarded, it is not the worst thing in the world that can happen to you. I was discarded, and I'll tell you, it's the greatest gift that man has ever given me. So if you want to learn more about how you move on after a discard, you will definitely want to check out the video I have for you on the screen, as well as other ones in the video description, and make sure you subscribe for more content. Thank you so much. Have a great day, survivor, and take care of yourself.